an elbow to the back of the head. Now knocks the Snake down to one knee. Casey being bitten again as the Snake was biting Scott Casey. Casey begins to punch back as the Snake is working around the area of the eyes. Casey whips him across the ring, drops down, the Snake over the top. Casey in front with a sleeper hold. Scott Casey with a sleeper hold on the Snake. Will he put the Snake out? Casey holding on to the Snake. The referee, George Stevens, is checking with him.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Southwest Championship Wrestling. Here's Eddie Mansfield.
You know something? Let me tell you something, you wrecked Saul Cowboy. You're nothing. When I'm finished riding your butt, boy, you're going to need a plastic settle when I get through with you. Scott Casey, you are nothing. You're a patty pounder. And all you cowboys out there know what a patty pounder is. Casey, you stuck your nose in my business one time too many. And I am the one and the only, the continental lover, a woman's pet and a man's regret, $100,000 smile, a $400,000 bank account. I got Playgirl magazine calling me every day saying, lover, please, why don't you pose in Playgirl? But let me tell you something, Scott Casey. You think because I tore one cowboy hat up that I'm through. You stuck your nose in my business twice. So I stuck my foot through your poor little old cowboy hat. Because you're not a cowboy. You're nothing but an old goat roper. So you just take in consideration that I do not back down from anybody because I'm the one and the only, the continental lover, a rich woman's lover, and a poor girl's dream, and nothing but 230 pounds of twisting steel and oozing with sex appeal. You bring your booty on anytime, anywhere, whether it be nose to nose and toes to toes, kung fu or boogaloo. First I'm going to chase you around the place, and then I'm going to erase your face, and then you'll have to leave in disgrace.
This man here, the Southwest Heavyweight Champion, Scott Casey, defending his title against gorgeous Gino Hernandez. Let's take a look at that, and then we'll talk to the champion. Gino Hernandez going up on that top rope. He comes flying off there, and Casey, the champion, moves out of the way. No disqualification because there was no contact. The referee, Juan Reynosa, counting both men down. Casey, the champion. His title on the line against gorgeous Gino Hernandez. Casey off the rope, shoulder tackle, knocks down Gino Hernandez. The champion stays right on top of him, goes for that suplex. He's got him up, and down he goes. The champion going for the victory. 1, 2, Hernandez kicks out. Hernandez comes diving with his head into the midsection of the champion. Scott Casey takes him, whips him to the turnbuckle, catches him coming out of there. And Casey continues to roll with him. It's 1, 2, 3, and the champion, the Cowboy, Scott Casey, retains his Southwest.
If you don't take Scott as your champion, then I am going to leave with the belt. How are you going to tell a guy 6'6" and 300 pounds you can't do this or do anything? I mean, what a monster he was. And good and kind-hearted if he liked you, and just a miserable, you know what, if he didn't like you. I mean, he's just that kind of person. So I wrestled in Corpus Christi one night and beat him right in the middle with a sunset flip. And he left. I had the belt and held it for about, almost a year. So I was drawing him money, and that's the name of the game. If you draw, you'll stay there. If you don't, you'll have to go.
What was he like in school?
A very intelligent man.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a very special edition of Wrestling with the Future. I'm your host, Hangman Angelo. I am joined by a familiar face, a guy I haven't seen in a very, very long time. And he is a breath of fresh air. Is that how they say it, Nikki? A breath of fresh air? Brother, you're like what the wind blew in, and I'm glad it blew it in this way. How you doing, brother? Nikita Brezhnikov.
I'm still hanging in there, one foot in front of the other. Glad to be here.
I hear you, my friend. Nikki, we have a familiar guest tonight. He's a guy's been here before, but he's got so many stories. He had to write a book about it. It's an amazing book. One Last Ride, the tales of Cowboy Scott Casey. And he is indeed our guest, Cowboy Scott Casey. Are you there? Yo, nanny goat rider?
I'm here.
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. I need to ask you something real quick.
Yes,
I've got
sir.
a friend that's a tremendous wrestling fan, and his name is Stephen McCauley, and he lives down by Temple, Texas. Does your radio reach out that far? I don't know.
Absolutely. Sure. Give him a shout out.
Okay. Well, anyway, he's a mortician, and every time we drive past a gravesite, he always says people just dying to get in there. I don't know what he meant.
You know what? Somehow I knew I was going to walk into it. I should have put my waiter boots on. I knew it. It was too good to be true.
You gotta love it. You got to love it.
Too good to be true. So, Cowboy.
He's always saying, yeah.
So let's talk about since your last visit, you were rudely interrupted by one Mr. Eddie Mansfield, and you couldn't get hardly a word in. Yeah, you're laughing because you remember that show.
Yeah, I do.
Well, now you got the whole show to yourself, my friend. So you'll have no interruption from Mr. Mansfield tonight. I assure you. So, and I know that Scott, you've never met my friend Nikita Brezhnikov. Nicky is a worker. He's a manager. He's also, get this one, he's a former Baltimore City police detective. How about that?
Wow. That's
How about that one, brother?
I knew who he was, but I like you said, I never met him, but I knew who he was. And very impressive looking young man.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes,
Scott, you a good guy. I always hear, like, I was with Nikolai Volkov for so many years. He always spoke highly of you. I know your paths crossed many times. And I believe this picture they have that Angelo has up, is that from the Phil Singer games?
From what game?
Yeah. Yeah, it actually is, Scott.
It's a great likeness. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, you'll see the caricature on one side, and the actual photo of Scott on the other side of that banner.
Yeah,
and that's promoting Scott's book, One Last Ride, co-authored by young man Nicholas Massey. Nick Massey is the guy who put this book together with Cowboy Scott Casey. It's a hell of a book, Scott. We talked about that the last time you were here, and let's be honest about it, Cowboy. We barely scratched the surface of the stories in that book. And since Nikita is here, and you already know my rambling mouth, I'm going to let Nicky jump right in on this and hit you with some questions. So go for it, Nikita.
Sure.
Scott, I know how hard it is to write a book and to pour your heart out. And then we're trying to transfer the knowledge that's within our head to the people out there and make it enjoyable, interesting, whatever you want to describe it. So how long did it take you to compile this?
It took me and Nick probably a little over a year to get it all out. You know, it just, and spoken by a departed friend of mine that I love to death, Joe Blanchard. He used to say it's full of tickles, tackles, and drop kicks, which I thought was so eloquent on his part. But it's, you know, you start out from the beginning and you work your way through and you try to remember all the funny things. And I'll be honest, folks, I did not throw anybody under the bus. I could have caused a lot of divorces.
Yeah, boy.
And I would have been a real asshole, but I didn't. It's just not my style. You know, I mean, if you can't make it good without that, then something's wrong as far as I'm concerned. But we had so much fun making the bunk. You know, I mean, he would talk about something, or he would say, okay, what about so-and-so? And then I would tell a story about the guy that he was referring to. And just, it just went on and on and on. And still, a friend of mine that lives in Temple, Texas, Millie Spoons, who is a devout Scott Casey wrestling fan, and I love her to death for it, used to say, you could write 2 or 3 books with all the stuff that you've talked about. And it's
Easily.
true. You know, I mean, different things that happen, you know. I mean, an example, a friend of mine who's now dead. Why are all my friends dead and I'm still here? Oh, well, anyway, Doug McMicken, or Tank Patton, as he was referred to. He would call me up in the middle of the night and say, Scott, I've got a joke for you. You're going to love it. You know, I'm sound asleep, and I'm going, oh, okay. And he was always doing that. Well, I got him back one night. We were down in Landry, Texas. I don't know whether that's close to where Coach Landry was at or not, but anyway, we were down there, and it had rained, and the people didn't give a shit. They were there to watch wrestling, and we did it. And that's another story about rain. But anyway, he throws me out of the ring. Now you got to look. This guy's like 6'4" and about 340. He told me, he said he was a snug 52 in the waist. I mean, Doug was an unbelievable guy, and I just hated that he died. But unfortunately, none of us are going to make it out alive, right? Anyway, he says he threw me out of the ring, and I had a piece of paper. Well, actually, it was a piece of tape that I wrote "fuck you" on it, and we got back in the ring. He was always serious, and I had taped it in my mouth. The referee's given us instructions, and I looked at Doug and I went, hey, and stuck my tongue out. He fell apart. Here's a big 6'4", 340-pound guy, and he's laughing his ass off, and we're supposed to be having a main event rough and tumble match, and I just had to get him back, and that was the only way I could. He'd like to beat me to death before I could get back out of the ring. You know, folks, it's a work, but it wasn't that night. It was funny, though. But that's, I mean, stories like that just go on and on and on. Another prime example, Nelson Royal, another guy that's dead. One of the premier baby faces and could outdo anybody, and he was like maybe 5'9", and I'm gonna say probably 230, but we called him Nelly. His name was Nelson Royal, and we're outside again in a match, and it's raining like crazy, and I'm putting my boots on, and Nelly said, "Don't put your boots on." I said, "Why?" I said, "That's gonna hurt my feet." He said, "It's gonna hurt you worse if you put your boots on, because the rain will make that ring as slick as snot on a doorknob, honest to God." And we were wrestling 2 guys, and they were slipping and sliding and flying all over, and we were able to make it happen, and that was just another story. I mean, that's what I did. I compiled stories that were funny, you know.
Yeah. Scott, I got a question for you. We know by the book the stories that made the book. Were there any stories that were either so raucous or so dirty or so in the locker room that you couldn't put them in the book?
Well, that's why I didn't put them in the book, simply because.
Well, that's why we have this podcast.
Well, anyway, it was. I can tell you a really prime example. Hold on, I got my other phone.
Go ahead,
Bonnie,
Scott.
hold
Take
on,
your time,
okay?
brother.
All right. Anyway,
take your time.
Bonnie,
we got all night now.
Bruce, the beautiful one. Now, Bruce, he's gonna get pissed, but I'm telling it. He's 80 years old. Now, when you're fucking 80 years old, you're just, it's crazy. You're not supposed to be able to. Yeah. Yes.
Live radio. You got to love it.
Yeah, I do love it. And it's funny that who he's talking to. Because who he's talking to, I spoke to this
Bruce?
guy. I spoke to him tonight.
It's Bruce. Yeah, I'm on the air right now.
And he's going to be our guest next week.
I'm putting you over, Bruce. Hold on for a minute. I'm talking to... Okay.
Is that Bruce Swayze?
Right, hold on. Bonnie will get a kick out of this. It was a story that I wrote in the book about Bruce and I. And Brute Bernard, 6'2", 290, big son of a bitch. Yeah. And then there was Sweet Hansen, who was 6'4", and he was well over 300 pounds.
Oh, God,
and, you know, back then we had the bologna blowouts. And we had the cold beer and the bologna, and we're making it. Now, Bruce was Brute, I get them mixed up, but Brute, he's passed away too. But anyway, he
Brute Bernard
was making the sandwiches. We had bologna blowouts, you know, because we drove everywhere back then. It wasn't like these guys nowadays flying on the plane. We drove everywhere.
Sure.
So Bruce says to me, he said, "Watch me fuck with Brute." I said, "Okay." We left the arena. He started in. "Hey, Brute, are we there yet?" No. Kept on and on and on. We got the sandwiches made, and we got the drinks made and everything, and we're carrying on. And Bruce, that's kind of hard to say. Bruce is going, "Are we there yet?" He must have asked Brute 50 times before we left the city limits of Norfolk, Virginia. I said, "You know you're going to get killed, don't you?" About that time, Brute throws the sandwiches up in the air, and he's French Canadian, and he goes, "Cocksucker, I kill you. You asked me too many times. Are we there yet?" With a French Canadian. Oh, God. Here's a guy that's 290 pounds and looks like he's the devil's right-hand man. And he goes, "I kill you." And he's strangling the shit out of Bruce. And I'm trying to pull him off. Well, Sweet Hansen stops the car in the middle of the freeway. There's cars going around us. I'm going, we're going to die, you know. And he stopped the car, gets Brute off. And he says, "Bruce, one more time, I'm going to strangle you." And Bruce looks like a little cherub there looking at him, you know. And God, it was funny. We get back in the car. We're driving down the road, and all of a sudden, Sweet slams on the brakes. He said, "You son of a bitches, I'm going to kill all three of you." What's going on? It seems like when Sweet, who loved to drink his wine, had put his false teeth on a napkin, and when he slammed on the brakes and opened the door, the teeth went outside. Now I'm going, God damn, this is going to, oh, shit. I'm going nuts. And Bruce is laughing his ass off.
Oh, my God.
He backs up down the freeway, backwards down the freeway, and he slams on the brakes. He finds his teeth. Thank God they hadn't been broken, because they would have buried all three of us anyway. But I said, this could only happen
found him.
with a bunch of wrestling.
That's the kicker. He actually found his teeth. Oh, my God.
Well, you know.
The people that don't know, Sweet Hansen was a monster. He was about 6'3", 330. He
was a big boy, was he not, Nicky? He was a big boy.
Oh, yeah. He hit the East Coast in 79, and he had a run with Backlund. And, that was it for the East. And then he came back in 83, and he turned face because they made him guest referee.
Yeah. Scott, you and I met in 85 in Philadelphia at the Spectrum. How long had you been up here working for Vinny up to that point? What was it? Did you come up in like 80, 81, 82 maybe?
I think it was later than that.
Frame. Or was it before that?
Yeah, I think I was there from 88 to 90, or 87 to 90, something like that. It was, I just remembered all you Yankees talk funny, and that's about the funniest thing I can think of.
Well, I always should tell people that Cowboy Scott Casey and I met at the Philadelphia Spectrum. I was doing hospitality there. And it's funny, you and I never talked about wrestling. Nikita, the funniest thing brought us together. Food. We were talking about food. Because Scott Casey told me, and these words, Scott, tell me if I'm lying, I'm dying. You said the best taco you ever had was in New Jersey.
It was, and I probably got about half the state of Texas pissed off at me because, these some Spanish people, and they made some of the best tacos and fajitas. Oh my God! And Nick knows that if you ever want to find a place, but I can't remember.
In Jersey, I said you had to come to Jersey to find a great taco. How about that? So, listen, Scott, we're going to take some phone calls tonight. We're going to do, let's see, about 7:30, we'll open up the phone lines, but let me give everybody the number. If you want to call in and have a word with Scott Casey, the number is 609-389-9829. Again, that's 609-389-9829. And that's our call-in number, and we'll throw the phones open about 7:30 Eastern time. So, Nikita, you've written a book. By the way, Scott, Nikita's book is called When It Was Real. It's written from the an interesting viewpoint. Nikita wrote the book from the fan viewpoint and told some inside stories as he knew them at the time. Do you still, when you read a wrestling book or you hear another one of the boys tell stories, does the fan in you still come out?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Does it really?
Yeah.
We talked about this, really... and a lot of the boys, they become jaded to the business. They forget. It's just my opinion. I think they forget sometimes how to be fans. But I wanted to find out if you still consider yourself a fan.
To a certain degree, yeah, but a lot of it, because the way they work now compared to the way we worked, say, like in the 70s and 80s, it's so different, I just I watch how they do things, and half these guys are going to be crippled by the time they're 30. Honest to God, if they start in their 20s, because it's just, the way they do things with the flying around and landing on the floor and the mat and the stuff they do. Yeah. It's just.
Nick, you want to take that one?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Scott, I always ask the question, what the hell does a ladder have to do with professional wrestling, or a scaffold? It's like, where did you get these ideas?
I have no idea. We never thought of using a ladder or scaffolds, but then again, we did bull rope matches, chain matches, and things like that in the ring. So I don't know. It's just one-upmanship. If I can outdo you, then we are. My company's doing this, and you're not doing it, and they're making money, or we're making money, and they're not.
You know what, Scott? That is a perfect segue into what I want to, because Nikita and I on a previous episode, and I believe it might have been, oh God, who was here at the time? It was you and I, Nikki, and we were here with Dan the Man, and I think our guest might have been, I'm trying to think whether it was J.J. Dillon. It might have been J.J. and Sal Carenti.
No, I wasn't that one. Maybe Dominic when he was still around.
Maybe the Dominic episode. Oh, you know what? It might have been the Dominic episode because Bruce Swayze was on that episode. But here's where I'm going with this one. Scott,
Yeah.
Southwest Championship Wrestling was called the biggest little territory in America. What made it so special? Why did Southwest, for a small promotion, pack the punch that it did?
We had guys that were perfectionists as far as their work went. And it's just like Lou Thesz said to me one time. I said, Lou, why are you standing out here watching the matches? I said, you were 7 times world champion. He said, you can always learn something. And you can steal it and put it in your repertoire. And I thought, man, that's an excellent way of putting it, because, you know, you the guys just, well, back then, you know, it was, we'd film, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 different segments of shows, and then they ship them out across the Texas.
Yeah. We looks like we're going to have a phone call coming in here shortly. So we're waiting for that phone call.
Hello?
Yes, are you there, my friend?
I'm here.
All right. Would you identify yourself, please, for our listeners and our guest, Scott Casey?
Your guest. You call Scott Casey a guest? Is that the deal?
I know that voice.
This is Les Thatcher, and I shouldn't really.
I love you.
Hey, you know what? I should never even speak to Scott Casey ever again. He put my age 10 years too old in his book, and I've tried to forgive him. I just don't know how the hell to do that, you know?
I tell you what.
Oh,
I think
man.
He made it up, Les, I think, by sheer kindness. He's a super guy.
He is. You know what? He knows I'm teasing him, or I hope he knows.
Sure.
Yeah, listen, Scott's my buddy. We've been friends since when he came to the Carolinas in the 70s, and one of my dearest friends. It was a hell of a tag team partner, even though I had to hold his hand and teach him and, you know, and all that craziness. But we've stayed in touch over the years, and I love him like a brother.
Well, let's talk about that a little, Les. You are the elder statesman of pro wrestling. I should point that out. When you have a guy like Scott, he's a greenie in the business at the time,
right,
making his way in. Does it take patience or discipline? How do you teach?
A little of both. Well, he can tell you what he nicknamed me. Go ahead, tell him, Scott.
I call him Mother, because everything I did, it felt like my mother was telling me what to do. And, you know, and at first I was a little upset about it. Then I thought, man, this guy's been around a hell of a lot longer than I'm going to pay attention to what he says. And I did. You know, I mean, it's just like, I'll never forget the first time we wrestled Ole and Gene Anderson. And we're in the ring.
Oh, my God.
And I'm trying to get you. Oh, remember, I got in there and I was going to do something. Oh, God. You know, but prior to that, Ole and Gene said, whatever you do, do it 100%. Well, I thought I was going to make a comeback before it was time to do it, and I could just see Les over in the corner going, God damn, you know.
Well, let me tell the story from the guy who was in the ring. I was trying to set him up for the hot comeback. Well, I say I was, Ole and Gene and myself, right?
Yeah.
And these guys are if they're not one of the greatest tag teams of all time, I don't know who the hell are.
Well,
but anyway.
I'll tell you what, Les and Scott, let me ask you a question along that line. They say Ole was a little snug and he was a tough guy. We all know that. But they tell me that Gene Anderson was a real kind of like shoot, you know, a shoot wrestler. That he would crank it on you, you know.
I can't speak for Scotty, but to me they were workers, good work. I never, you know, that's the thing.
They were.
I've worked with some very legitimate tough guys in my career, but I never felt them. Harley, Danny Hodge, you know, it's called working. I wish some of the younger kids would learn that. Let me tell about the Anderson match a little bit, though. The funny thing is, this is Greenville, South Carolina. And I'm selling an Ole and Gene. If you've watched them work, I'm fighting for the corner. They're pulling me back. We're building the heat. And of course, I'm not watching the corner, but Ole's he's in with me at the time. he's in a position to see it, and all of a sudden I hear him say, "Oh, fuck." Right? I thought, what happened? And guess who I saw in my peripheral vision? My tag team partner about an hour and a half too early. Right? Oh, and the point is, for those listening, once that fresh babyface comes in and touches those heels, you got to build the heat again, because that's what the people want. So anyway, when we get to the dressing room, the three old grizzled veterans, me and more of the Andersons than me, but it's like, why the hell did you do that? And here is the legitimate answer: the people wanted me to.
Exactly.
And for that, we should have drowned him in the shower, but we didn't. Right?
Exactly.
So,
they knew I was greener than goat shit, and and I just thought that was the thing to do then. But boy, did I get an earful! I mean, all the way back to Charlotte and him ranting and raving, "Don't you ever do something like that again." At first, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. Then I caught on. I went, "Oh
yeah.
God," and I went,
"Well,
I'm
Scott,
sorry."
let me ask you. You've always been an athlete your whole life. Why did you gravitate toward the world of wrestling? I heard it was almost kind of like by accident that you ended up in wrestling. Did you know what you were getting into when you stepped into a ring with a guy the likes of Les Thatcher and Ole and Gene Anderson? Did you have any idea what you were opening yourself up to?
No, I was a wrestling fan. That's all I can tell you. I wanted to do what these guys were doing, and and the more I got into it, the more I got fired up about it. Bobby Duncombe, Terry Funk, Dick Murdoch, and you're talking about some names there. These guys could beat you to death. But I mean they kept working on me, and then finally they said, "Well, hell, I guess we're going to have to teach him, because he won't quit," and that's what happened, But
that's the way he broke guys in back then.
Yeah, absolutely, Les. You're absolutely right. Nikki, you wanna talk to Les a little bit? By the way, Les, Nikita Brezhnikov was my guest host at the time that you joined me,
right?
And Nikita,
right.
And he's back with me tonight for this special episode. It was fortuitous that we got a hold of you. Nikki, go ahead. Talk to Les a bit.
Good to hear you again, Les. Honor and pleasure.
Thank you very much. Same here.
I just love to sit back and listen to you guys talk about the passion, which I'm not going to say it doesn't exist today, but I think it's just misplaced. I think the idea of trying to make a name overrides the passion and respect of the business and for the people you're working with. And listening to you tell these stories, it's like, that's why that was wrestling, and that's why today is sports entertainment. Two different planets.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of fill in on Scott's journey to where we ended up as partners, he started, with Terry. He mentioned Terry Funk and Murdoch and those guys. Okay, he broke in there. From there, I guess Terry got him booked in Florida, and so that was a great place to learn too. A lot of good, solid workers there. Okay, and so then I think, was it Bobby Shane that lined up Charlotte for you, Scott?
I think so. God rest his soul.
I was thinking it was too. Yeah. So when he came in, George Scott said, I'm going to make this kid your partner. We're going to teach him, because tag team wrestling is a different flow, a different psychology than singles, right? And right in that era, the 60s and 70s, there was never a better place to learn tag team wrestling than in the Carolinas, because some of the greatest tag teams in the world were all based right there. The Assassins, Hawk and Hansen, the Andersons, the Infernos, and in the 60s and 70s. So it was a
George
great place.
Becker and Johnny Weaver.
Yeah. Well, yes, God, they were the top baby faces for like 100 years there. So, yeah. But, yes, absolutely. So it was like, there were no wrestling schools then, but he was getting his education in the different territories in the different styles, but through the whole thing, being educated completely to the industry.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well spoken. Well spoken.
And Scott, let me ask you a question. Scott, did you carry those lessons with you?
You better believe I did. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to survive if I hadn't have. I mean, funny stories like the lawman, Don Slatton, 6'6" and maybe 200 pounds. He looked like anyway, him and his partner, I was his partner, that's right. And we were against Cyclone Negro and, God, I can't remember the other guy's name. But anyway, Bobby Heenan. That's who it was.
Oh, my God.
We're in there, and back then the referees would give instructions and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, with a straight face, Heenan looks at me, and he says, "Doesn't Slatton look like a well-dressed snake?" I fell. Everybody started laughing. We just, back then, you don't laugh, it's serious or whatever, but this was the funniest thing you've ever, oh, God.
We had fun. As you're telling that story, people at home right now are watching you take on a guy called the Snake. He's all in red, a hooded wrestler wearing all red. What do we know about this guy, this Snake that you're working?
You got me. I never saw him. I think it was a Spanish guy. I'm not sure, but
okay.
I really couldn't tell you that much. I actually don't really remember that much about him. I mean, Les is the one that's got all the damn memories. I don't.
Oh,
I don't know who the Snake was. What territory was that in?
This is they're watching a clip right now from Joe Blanchard's Southwest Championship Wrestling.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know who the Snake was there. But I'm guessing Scotty's probably right. It was probably one of the Hispanic boys, probably one of the Mexicans. Right. Yeah.
So like an enhancement guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And now what we're watching now is a young man named Eddie Mansfield cutting one hellacious promo on Scott Casey, calling him everything but human. I believe he used the that now infamous, Scott, the term patty pounder. Can you tell everybody what the hell a patty pounder was?
I guess it's 16 ounces of something. I have no idea. But I mean, on Eddie, he got, I want to say a raw deal. I realized back then you had to kayfabe. You had to do, you learned it from the best. And I don't care if you were eating dinner and somebody came up to the table and said something, the shit was on. People, you had to protect our business. It wasn't, they weren't making $150,000 to $200,000 a year on bottom like they are now, and we worked our ass off, and
you better believe it.
Sometimes it paid off. But anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll tell you what, I was just going to say that, a couple of weeks ago we had Larry Zbyszko here. He said, let me tell you something, brother. If we didn't put asses in seats, we didn't eat that night. And you guys were making a hell of a lot less.
Well, we got percentage. The opening match got a percentage, and the percentage got bigger as you got to the top. So you had a reason to want to be on top. There wasn't a set salary when, whether you drew or you didn't draw. Because if you didn't draw, if the house didn't draw, you didn't get to pay.
Yeah, well, and nowadays, and the key to maybe you want to take this one, we're living in the era of guaranteed contracts for doing nothing.
That's true. Yeah. And I want one. Where can I get one of those?
Oh, well, yeah. But you can lay back when you have the guaranteed money. Whereas, as we're describing years ago, it's like, I got to work my way up the card so I can get more money. I got to pay bills. I want to buy a bigger house, bigger car. So when they give you a shot, you're going to make that shot count. Whereas today, okay, I'm doing this, whatever. Even if I look like shit, nobody's going to care because I still get paid.
Exactly.
And I've heard that said.
Yeah. Good point, Nikki.
Well,
good point.
I tell you, from Joe Blanchard's point of view, he said you better get out there, jump there, and shit in your hair, because if you don't, and you're the first match, if you don't, it's going to set the precedent for the rest of the guys, you know. And
absolutely.
You had to. I mean, I'm talking about expressions, movements, comebacks, jumping up and pounding some guy from a rope, and
details.
You had to know what
details.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Les.
I think the biggest difference, actually, is back then. You were in the business because you had a passion for it. I mean, you wanted to make, but it wasn't about money. Today, I think a lot of these kids, I want to be famous. I hear about these big contracts, and it's not necessarily that I have a passion to be in this business, and finally I've got that opportunity. You know, it's a whole different ball game. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying that's probably the major difference.
Yeah.
The guys that were in it back then were in it because they had a passion and a love for the industry.
And
today, I don't think that's the case necessarily.
I think you just put your finger on it. I don't think that Nikita and I would argue with you. You know, not putting words in anybody's mouth, but I think they want to be famous. That's go ahead, Nikki.
That's agreed, but here's the problem: where we had the heroes that we loved, the all-time greats. Who did this generation have to emulate and to hold up as it? They really don't have anything to follow, so they don't really care.
No.
Well, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you from a trainer's perspective. Tom Pritchard and I were talking about this just the other day. Kids come to learn. We teach sound fundamentals and sound basics. They don't understand what they're trying to be taught because they never see it on television.
Yeah.
If you watch, for the most part, I mean, you'll see some wrestling matches, and I'm using my fingers like in quotations at wrestling matches. But for the most part, you see a lot of spots. You know, it's punch, kick, spots. So when you're trying to teach the proper execution of this move or that move, they've never seen it, right? So they don't know what you're trying to teach them.
While I got you here, Les, and you've been here before, I would love to bring you back, honestly. And I really like to bring you back, and maybe Nikita and I can do a whole show with you on match psychology, because that's one thing I'm passionate about.
Sure.
Is what the hell happened to the psychology? Why you do something for a reason? Why are you doing this move? What's behind it? What's the story involved in it?
Everything should have a reason. Exactly. Yes.
There should be
no wasted motion. Less is more. I mean, and that's one of the things we try to teach too, and they don't understand. But anyway, it's a whole different ball game. Well, I am happy to say that I worked in the years that I did. I think the 60s and the 70s, honestly, were the golden years of this industry as far as my lifespan is concerned. Not because I was part of it, but because there were so many great workers. And I, again, using my fingers for quotations, workers, not sports entertainers, not acrobats, but workers, yes.
Exactly. Brother, I thank you so much for joining us tonight. I have to let you go. Because we got a lot to cover with Cowboy tonight. So thank you so much.
Let me say this, Scotty, I love you, brother. Thank you for everything, and I'll never, I'm sorry to say I'll never forget you. I'm not planning on dying today or anything. Stay in touch, my brother. Okay, thanks a lot for having me on. And damn it, let me say this to straighten everything out about that stupid book he wrote. I will be 81 the 28th of this month.
Now
there you have it.
Huh?
Guys, thanks for having me on. God bless you all.
Okay. Les, I'll touch base with you in a day or two. Thank you, my friend.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
I got to say one thing about Les. He's forgotten more than most of us ever learned. Honest to God. He's just, I'll never forget, I was behind the curtains in High Point at the TV show. and Les was there. I think Les was there, but I know that George Scott was there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wrestle Johnny Valentine.
Oh, we got to go ahead, Les. Go ahead, Scott.
He says, do you know John Valentine? I said, no, I've heard, he's a big main eventer and all that.
Yeah.
He said, well, fight for your life, and push me through the curtains. And I'm looking back at him like, what the fuck is he talking about? I get in the ring, and here's this 6'3", 250-pound, blonde-haired, mean man. Anyway, I mean, he looked like he was. And we locked up, and he started wailing the piss out of me. I mean,
oh man,
folks, I'm sorry about my language, but he said, you may not. How did he put it?
I think what he said to you was, you may not believe wrestling is real, but you'll believe I'm real.
You're right. I got in there. Now, he wasn't going to hit you in the groin or the nose or whatever.
Right.
But he would waffle the hell out of you with his hands, the back, stomach, chest.
Cowboy, we got another call. We got another call that's trying to get in here, so let's find out who this one is.
Okay.
Let's find out who this one is. Yep. Just as soon as I punch this line through. All right. Come on, caller. Are you there, caller?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Oh, Lord. I know that voice.
Hey,
I know that
you
voice.
Got that. Hey, you got that nanny goat rider on that show? Let me tell you something. I was talking to one of my television executive buddies today, and he said to me, he said, that damn Scott Casey, that nanny goat rider is shopping a show. I said, shopping a show? He said, no, a whole series. I said, really? It's called Goat Commander. And I said, the Goat Commander, yeah, that figures that's Scott Casey. Absolutely, that nanny goat riding son of a gun,
Let me tell everybody, if you don't know this man's voice, well, by God, you should. It's the cosmic cowboy, the continental lover himself, Mr. Eddie Mansfield. Eddie, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing really good, and I'm glad to see that Scott Casey's still living, and he's doing good. And what's really funny, Angelo, is that, I never used the Cosmic Cowboy but one time in San Antonio. I used to use the Continental Lover and the Cosmic Cowboy in L.A. and everywhere else because I didn't want to intrude on the Nanny Goats Riders' damn gimmick. And so I only used it after I lost the hair versus hair match to him, in which we drew the largest crowd in San Antonio wrestling history. And we held that title for 11 years. Only reason that was broken is because they built the Alamo Dome. Could you imagine how many asses we'd have put in the Alamo Dome?
Oh, man.
I mean, forget about it.
Brother.
It's like, it'd have been a record-ass crowd for Scott Casey and Eddie Mansfield. Believe me. Something.
All right,
I don't
Eddie.
mind telling you.
Right.
I don't mind telling you, Angelo, that Scott Casey and Eddie Mansfield made Southwest Championship Wrestling. It wasn't
no
for us.
question about it.
It wouldn't be on the map.
I got a co-host tonight. He's a dear friend of mine. He's got a lot of history in him. So, Nikki, talk to Eddie Mansfield and Scott Casey for a bit, and let's just stir up some memories of Southwest.
I remember Southwest when Adrian Adonis, when they gave him the championship, when they kind of like.
Well, I don't give a shit about Adrian Adonis. Bottom line is, Scott Casey and myself made Southwest Championship Wrestling, not Adrian Adonis. He didn't draw two knobs of goat shit the whole time he was there. I don't give a damn what.
Nick, I'm sorry,
something?
but you're not going to.
Hey, we sold out. Let me tell you something. Scott and myself sold out every arena in the state of Texas we were in, and neither one of us had a championship belt. What does that tell you about belts?
Right.
They're only good for holding up your pants, man.
Oh, we got a call coming in, Eddie. Hold on, brother. All right, caller, are you there?
On the line, you'll never get it.
Caller, are you there? You're on Wrestling with the Future.
Hey, it's Millie and Donna from
Oh,
Texas.
my God.
My girls.
Oh, that's Casey's
funny.
Girls. Oh my goodness.
How you guys doing tonight?
I tell you, she knows more about wrestling than all of us together.
I tell you what, it's
We're
funny,
doing
man.
fine.
Whenever you
That's the
guys
truth.
get
That's
together,
the absolute truth.
whenever you guys get together, Donna and Millie come out the woodwork, and they show up at places. How you guys doing tonight, Millie? How you doing, Millie?
We're good, but we cannot get your podcast.
Well, you'll be able to
know
get it
what's
in about 30 minutes. We're on a delay, sweetheart.
And you think,
That's
gee,
why
I'm blonde.
we're on a delay.
Hey, I can tell I can tell, Millie, you don't know anything about the production business. That's okay. Yeah.
I almost called Eddie, and I decided, no, he's busy making money, and I won't bother a man that's making money.
Yeah, you shouldn't, because that's all I do. You know, I work like, you know, I thought by now I'd be just a quiet, you know, just sitting back. Man, I'm running harder now than I ever did when I was wrestling. And it's, you know, I love what I'm doing. I really do. And I feel very fortunate, guys. You know, all jokes aside, I'm very fortunate to have my health and to be able to run the way I run now. And I run hard, and I run hard every day. And you know, the best thing they ever did was kick me out of the professional wrestling business, because it's probably saved my life. And and I've made more money by accident than I ever made in professional wrestling. And so I look at, you know, and I thank God above every day for all the blessings that he's given me as a human being. And I've always wished, you know, Scott the best, and you know, all my friends the best. And that's the way you got to live life. You got to, you know, you put your best foot forward, and keep your shoulders back and your head held high. And, you know, it's not that people don't run into obstacles in everyday life, but you have to stand up and be better than everybody else. And that's the way I consider myself. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to outwork you. And I'm going to beat you, because I'm a winner, and they can't stop.
Question for Scott Casey and Eddie Mansfield.
I tell you what, guys, hold on for a minute, Eddie. I know you're trying to say a bunch of stuff, but I want to get back to what I was saying about John Valentine. Now, if either you guys ever worked with him, you'll know what I'm saying. He hit me so hard that I in the neck and the chest, in the back and the stomach. And I'm sitting there, I'm laying on the apron, and Angelo Martinelli, an old-time referee, was looking, and he's going, well, I don't know what to do. And I'm sitting there going, by God, I'm about 1,800 miles away from my home in Texas, but I don't let any son of a bitch hit me like that without giving him a receipt. Yeah. And I reared back from South Texas and went all the way up to North Texas and hit him in the chest, and his knees buckled. And you know what he did?
That's good.
He looked at me and goes, I love it. I thought, well, you crazy son of a bitch, you know. But
no,
that was just John. He wouldn't hurt you, but he would just, you know, that's just the way he was. Anyway, I had to tell that. I'll shut up and let you guys rant and rave.
Oh, that's perfect. We need that. We need that one.
Yeah.
It's been said, Eddie, I don't know. Eddie, did you ever work with Johnny Valentine?
No, because I was a heel my whole career. I
You're
never
lucky.
was. Yeah, I you know something. I love being a heel. That's just my makeup. It really is. You know, they wanted me to come in as a baby face.
Yeah.
And when I first started in the business, because of my background in baseball, and you know,
sure.
And you know, I wasn't. You know, I'm not an ugly guy. So they wanted me to be a baby face, and I looked around and I said, "What? I don't want to be that. You know, I want to be somebody."
You were too damn ugly to be a baby face.
Yeah, bullshit. You ever looked in the mirror, Scott Casey? It's like,
listen,
line is,
you guys,
like,
listen. John,
listen,
Eddie, hold on
what
for
the hell
a second.
I want to listen to you for?
Because I'm going to say something in your behalf. All right.
Oh, bless my heart. Okay.
I
go
went
ahead.
to the Legends. And I talked to Eddie, and I said, "You need to come to it." He said, "I don't know, because a lot of guys don't like me because I exposed the business and did this and that." And I said, "Fuck them. They've been out of the business for 30 years, and half of them are dead. Don't worry about it." And finally, I talked him into coming. And I think there's one thing that I did that I'm most proud of, because he was happy as a pig in shit there, and all the guys were talking to him. He thought nobody would like him and hate him and stuff. Well, they don't. They didnn't care. We were all workers. It's a work, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
And
the thing I'm most proud of is that I can call Eddie Mansfield and Scott Casey my friends. And that's a shoot.
Thank you, Andrew.
Absolutely.
That's a straight shoot.
Well,
brother.
one of the greatest things that happened in my wrestling career was, not only all the stuff that Scott and myself did in Southwest, but when they gave me the award in Tampa, and I had Scott present it to me, and that meant more to me than anything in the world.
Beautiful.
And
you're gonna make me cry.
Well, get the violin out, right, Scotty? But it's like,
that's it. You bet.
It's like,
you're my friend.
Me and him are kind of attached at the hip, and we did stuff, Angelo, that nobody has done, and nobody could do in Southwest after I left.
My understanding, Eddie, is that you and Scott broke every previous attendance record at the Hemisphere Arena.
Absolutely, we sure did.
I heard that.
Yeah,
and
we did, and
I loved
it. And if that dumbass Joe Blanchard would have listened to me, I told him and to do a closed circuit at the Marriott right there in the Riverwalk, right? Because they turned about 10,000 people that night, and so.
Wow.
If he would have had a closed circuit at the Marriott and charged, a ticket, I mean, it would have been huge. But promoters back then, they didn't have any foresight. Only foresight they had was stealing money and keeping us down, instead of saying, okay, like Vince McMahon. When Vince came in, what he did was started throwing money around. Well, if you throw money around wrestlers, they're going to do whatever you want.
Oh, sure.
And I always say this about the NWA. You talk about people running for the hills. The No Wealth Allowed Federation, they ran for the hills. How does 35 territories close just because one son of a bitch steals you 3 or 4 guys? I mean, why don't you still make? The formula was each territory made their own stars.
Yeah,
and then you could trade.
Well,
out.
Eddie, can I ask you and Scott, because Nikita and I had mentioned this before you joined the call tonight. Nikita and I were talking to Scott earlier in the show about the power of Southwest Championship Wrestling, and the fact that wrestling enthusiasts like us, and I still consider myself a fan. They called that territory the biggest small promotion in the country. What was it, in your opinion, Eddie? So here's what I'm getting at. What, in your opinion, and I value your opinion, and I want to toss it off to Nikita. What in your opinion was Joe Blanchard's magic 8-ball? What did he do?
Well, the 8-ball was the key. But anyway, it was Fred Barron's. He had the contract to USA Network, the same contract that Vince McMahon has today. Scott and myself worked on. We, beside TBS, a Southwest Championship Wrestling on USA was the only promotion that was nationwide. I mean, Scott and myself were nationwide all the time. I flew everywhere. And Scott can tell you the same thing. And we used to go to St. Louis, Toronto, Detroit. I mean, places like that. we were in big demand when that was unheard of. It's like Wahoo and myself were the first two guys ever in the history of the business to be on TBS at 6:05 and the following morning on USA Network at 10:30 nationwide.
I actually remember that because I saw both shows. That's for real.
And, you know, that was quite an honor for me, and it's quite an honor for the chief, and you know, Scott Casey and myself, we were pretty much a household name. I came in the Southwest Championship Wrestling right off of Atlanta television. So, and my deal with the Wahoo, who was a booking, he did a great job booking. He said, okay. He said, what's your deal? I said, I want to be able to pick who I want to do an angle with.
Yeah.
And so when I got there, I did my thing, and then all of a sudden, I met Scott, and me and Scott, I don't know what it was about Scott. I looked at Scott as the Marlboro man. He women loved him, and men wanted to be like him. Okay, as a baby face, that is magic. And then with me being a young guy and a good-looking guy and could work, and Scott could work, I said, if we put us together, Wahoo said, you ain't gonna never draw shit with Scott Casey. I said, I'll sell out this every damn arena in the world if you listen to me. And I said, because me and Scott got magic.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know what it is. It's just that we had that magic. And I guarantee you, we could get in the ring today and we'd still have that magic. And it's just something that Scott had and I had that, you know, you just can't get again. I mean, it was just that smelling sauce that woke up the people. And I always tell guys, they ask me questions, Angelo. They say, well, what's wrong with the business today? I said, well, there's nothing wrong with the business. They just got away from what really drew money. You know, there's no cowboys anymore. There's no more Indians. There's no more blonde-headed hills, and there's no more of this, and everybody wants to be liked. You know, I wanted people to hate me. You know what I used to do?
Yeah.
I had kids come up to me. I used to have kids come up to me all the time at Southwest and ask me for an autograph. You know what I do? I put best wishes, and I'd sign Scott Casey's name and give them to him.
Well, I got a guy as a co-host tonight that knows a little bit about being a heel. He toured the country with Nikolai Volkov as his manager and sometimes tag team partner. So, Nicky, I'll let you take over for a little while. Talk to Eddie and Scott.
Well, you know, Eddie, I'm gonna ride on the heels of what he was just talking about with today. How in the hell do you draw heat when everybody's worried about being boycotted by saying the wrong thing? We would get out there. You could talk about it would be off color, it would be whatever, but it meant the guy you were talking about, people were going to come to see you knock his teeth out. They loved it. Today, can you even say your mother wears army boots? I mean, that's going to piss somebody off. And here come the sponsors. And, oh, my God, you can't say that. You can't do this. We're going to be, what the hell do they call it? Cancel culture. And it's like, I don't even know what this world is anymore, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. So how do you put wrestling into this bullshit that they call life in the United States now?
Well, you're absolutely right. You know something? I swear to God. You know something? Because you know what got me over at Southwest was not only in the ring, but my promos and stuff on Scott. I used to call him a gay caballero. I used to call him a patty pounder. I used to do, you know, a nanny goat rider, you know, a Rexall Ranger and stuff like that. You know, I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, if you're that weak as a human being that you can't understand a good guy versus a bad guy and what he needs to do his job, you know, screw you. Cancel me, you bastard. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't, you know, they can't cancel me. You know why? Because I won't let them cancel me. And you're not going to dictate edicts to me either.
Yeah.
You're not going to tell me who to hire. You know, I'm going to hire the best possible people I'm going to hire. I don't care who they are. They're going to be the best or they're not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as that. I'm not going to let any son of a bitch tell me what I need to do because it's my damn company. I started that company from nothing, and I didn't have anybody to help me. And I started with zero, and I took it from zero to $29 million. That's pretty damn good.
Absolutely. And as you're speaking, not to interrupt you, Nikki, but I want people to know that as Eddie and Nikita are speaking, we're actually watching Scott Casey and Eddie Mansfield, and Eddie's about to deliver one of his famous promos, and we're also going to look at Scott Casey in the ring with Gino Hernandez. Now, I know that's a name that's going to set Eddie Mansfield off, but I got to ask you. Go ahead, Eddie.
Well, let me tell you something. Here's what I had to do with Wahoo. I got Wahoo on the side, and he was. You remember when Wahoo moved? Scott and the Chief were living where the judge got shot, and John Woods, and then the Indian got a house right up for me in San Antonio, and I went up there on Tuesday. Tully Blanchard, just to let you know, he used to call every Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning, and Scott will tell you the same thing. When am I going to get my belt back? You know, and so it's like he had to sleep with his belt where he felt secure. But when you look at things, Angelo, it's like what I did with him, and I came up. I had an idea of putting Gino Hernandez with Tully Blanchard, where me and Scott would have a main event status. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I sold it to the Chief. I said, Chief, you and Ivan Putski can work. You and Tiger Conway can work. You and Chavo Guerrero can work against, these two guys. And Scott and me will have a spot. Because if not, Tully Blanchard would take that damn spot away from us, and we wouldn't, he would try to steal our draw. And I got to Wahoo, and Tully had pissed Wahoo off enough just to do it. You know what I mean? So that's
absolutely
the way that happened. And Scott and myself had the main event status because they would go as a double main event then. That way Tully Blanchard could say, oh, I drew money. Well, Tully never drew shit in Southwest Championship Wrestling. I'm just telling you that now. He just didn't.
Yeah.
And he was just the promoter's son.
Yeah.
And everywhere, follow his career. Everywhere he ever went, he had to have that pacifier. He had to have a belt.
Eddie, did Joe have that confidence in his son? Did Joe Blanchard have confidence in Tully?
I don't.
Well, he had enough confidence in Tully to give him his last $30,000 he had in the world.
Wow.
I didn't know about that.
So that speaks volumes right there. And so,
yeah,
it's you can't say, I'll never say anything really bad about Joe Blanchard because he really tried. But it's Tully. Tully's just a rotten apple, and that's just the way it is. Yeah. He's a rotten son of a bitch from the core, inside and out. and
now watch out. He's a preacher.
Well, what does that tell you? Scott.
Well, what the hell? Well, it's like Ted DiBiase. He passed the plate too many times, and so if you keep passing the plate.
What? I'm glad, Scott. I'm glad you brought that up. What do you guys make? And Nikita, I'm curious to have your opinion on this. What do you make of Tully managing the career of his daughter now, who is? She is like
he's an old fart riding on his. Hey, he's an old fart riding on his daughter's coattails, or whatever you want to call it.
Well,
like
is
that,
it? Well, here's my question.
Something, Angelo. He never even raised his daughter. Magnum TA is the one who raised that daughter.
Well, and I know that factually because Magnum has been on my show, and we've actually talked about it. And so that is without argument. Magnum has actually been here.
Tully Blanchard was a wife beater. I mean, I'm not going to stand up for a wife beater. I'm all about women's rights and everything else.
Yeah, I gotta pull it. I have to pull it back into wrestling though. But here's the thing though.
I dropped it. Yeah.
Scott brought up an interesting point. Is it Tully riding off of Tessa's coattails, or is it Tessa following the old man. Nikki, what do you think?
Sir.
Well, I know very little because I don't follow it today, but I'm going to say you got it right. He is following her coattails, okay? Because he's gone. She's a good-looking gal, and that's what they pushed today. He's yesterday's news, so I think he's riding her coattails.
Would that be about right, Eddie?
Yeah, I would say that because you know, she's a very talented person, and you know, he just needs a payday because that preaching don't pay much, you know, and so
apparently,
and unless you steal a bunch of money like the $1 Million Man did, so it's
yeah.
But
well, he's
I
paying it back. In fairness, he's paying it back.
Well, he's got.
Well, I'll tell you what.
This
has been a really, really interesting show. It's been a long show, and we ain't finished yet. Eddie, I gotta let you go, brother. You will be back.
Have a good one. Bye bye.
Thank you. Take care, my friend.
See you, brother.
All right, Cowboy. It's
Whoa,
just
a
those chickens here. I'll tell you what, Eddie Mansfield, to be clear, and I will never censor anyone on this show. It will not happen. I will never censor a guest's viewpoint or opinion. But I'll tell you what, man, when Eddie Mansfield has an opinion, he ain't shy about it. And I think
he'll light up the airways.
Yeah, well, you know better than I do. You've known him a lot longer than I. You know, I think I know Eddie pretty well, but you've known him a whole lot longer than I have, and you know he's not shy. You know.
Well, he wouldn't be where he is now if he was. That's for sure.
That's exactly right.
He's done real. You know,
absolutely.
I mean, he does production work,
so
directors and all that stuff.
Let me ask you a question, Scott. How would you surmise your career? And Nikita and I, you know, after we let you go tonight, we're going to talk a bit. We're going to recap the show. Well, how would you surmise your career? Is it everything you expected? Is it more? Did you expect more from your career? Did it? I mean, you know where I'm going, Nikki. Did you exceed your expectations?
Are you satisfied?
Okay, if you were a competitor like I was, you're never satisfied with what you did, or, you know, you're always wanting to do more or be more and be a champion. And, you know, even though it's a work, you know, you'd like to still be a part of the main event all the time, but that won't happen, you know. But I'm not sad about it. I'm just I just say that, you know, I think I could have had more, you know. And when I went to New York, I was just one of the girls in the show, and I used to talk to George Steele, the Animal, and he says, you know, they've only got so many spots, you know, and I think they have a committee of people that sits there and votes on things, and I was just not, you know, I looked good, but they had so many guys that were 6'2", 6'3", that had the same dimensions that I had.
Yeah.
And they just didn't want me or need me, whatever. And I was so pleasantly surprised. Vince McMahon came up to me one time and he said, "Scott, Brian Blair cannot be here tonight. Something happened, I don't know. But he said, would you take over his spot?" I said, "Sure." This was in the Survivor Series.
Right.
And, you know, wow, maybe I'll make a few dollars, you know, and I did. You know, I think for 3 minutes work, I did about $5,000, which is not that much up there, but it made me happy at the moment because, number one, he asked me to do it. And
yeah, exactly.
I got to be with the big stars, you know.
Sure.
And on that same venue, everybody that we on the babyface side worked with, they're all passed away.
Yeah.
Harley Race, Andre the Giant, Dino Bravo, I can't remember the rest of them, but anyway, it's, Tito Santana said that to me one time. He said, "You realize they're all gone?"
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. But anyway, back to what I was saying.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, is that is that a testimony to your? Is that a testimony to your career that you're still here, or is that a testimony to the fact that you have a never say die attitude?
I think probably never say die attitude, because I learned from the greats. I'm talking about people, Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr., Lou Thez, I'm trying to think of some of the others, Bobby Duncombe, Dick Murdoch, and they taught me so much, and I was just, I don't know, when you have a lot of pride, and I do, and I did, you always want to be able to accomplish more, I think.
Oh, sure. Well, I'll tell you what, my friend, you have accomplished more and then some. You've done things that a lot of people never dream to accomplish, and you succeeded above and beyond perhaps what you thought you were ever capable of. Athletics will take you so far, but being a good person will take you a hell of a lot further. And you're one of the good guys that really is a good guy. Yes.
Well, thank you very much. And
I say that as somebody who knows you. I say that as your friend. I say that as somebody who talks to you a couple times a week and bugs the shit out of you.
I love it.
Yeah, well, I'm good that way.
What I wanted to say was, this may sound silly, but I owe a lot of this to my mother, and she's been gone for years. But I'll never forget when I was in high school, and this is veering away from wrestling, but it'll come back to it when you hear it.
Sure.
I tried out for the football team, and they had 54 of us. I was the 55th one, so I didn't get it, and I was devastated. So I went home to my mother. She's sweeping in the floor and stuff, and she hears this story and sees me crying, and wham, hit me upside the head with a broom. And I never heard my mother talk like this. She said, "You get your ass back up to that school." And I'm walking up there with you, and I'm going, "Oh God, okay, all right." So we went back up there, and the coach goes, she says, "I want you to give my boy a chance again." Well, we already did. We just didn't feel like that he qualified for what we wanted. Now, my mother bowed up to him and said, "I think he can." And Coach Allen goes, "All right, put the all-state defensive end on one end of this board, I'm on the other, and if you knock the other guy off, you got to keep your job." I hit him so hard that it gave him a concussion. We didn't know what they were back in the 60s, but anyway, I did. And I thought, I'm never going to get a job. But they put me on the team, and just simply because my mother, who didn't know hello from sickle about football, knew that I could do it. And she's shaking that broom and Coach Allen. And all my buddies are laughing their ass off.
That's
remarkable. But I learned, I learned from her how to stand up and be a man, And
good.
I did,
Well,
anyway,
a good mother will do that.
But,
absolutely,
yes,
brother.
She will.
I'll tell you what, I am honored to call you my friend. You've been here probably 5-6 times already. You will be here more. I assure you of that.
I will.
Just to let you know, Scott, I will be here next week with Bruce SWAYZE. Beautiful Bruce is my guest next week. And
I
Bonnie
tell you
will
a quick
be on.
Story besides. Yeah.
Oh,
Bruce SWAYZE is 80 years. He's 80 years old. How many 80-year-old men do you know that can get on a bench press and bench press 5 times 250 pounds? Bruce can.
I know I can't.
I watched him do it. I mean, hell, you and I both together couldn't lift it up, but he does.
Well,
He
I'll
did.
tell you what. If you've seen Bruce, I'll tell you what, brother. If you've seen Bruce in his heyday, and I encourage everybody to Google Bruce Swayze, he was a quite a physical specimen. He's a big, strong guy, and he looks like a wrestler, and he's built like a wrestler, and he beat you up like a wrestler. So I'll tell you what, Scott, I'm going to let you go. I will. I'm going to bring you back next week. I want to maybe stick you in Bruce's show for a little bit.
Absolutely,
you up for that?
I'd love to.
Beautiful.
Okay,
my
thank
friend,
you very
I'm going
much
to let
for.
you go. You have a great night.
Nikki, it was good.
Yes, sir. Good to know you, Scott. You're a good man.
Well, thank you, sir. And so are you. One hell of a heel, too.
Thank you so much.
And the book is One
All right,
Last Ride, The Tales of Cowboy Scott Casey. Get it, co-authored by Nick Massey. It is still available. Check it out. We will find it for you. Scott Casey. You can find it at Scott Casey on his Facebook, or hit up Nick Massey. The book is still available on Amazon and wherever books are sold. So, Scott, take care, my friend. I will call you tomorrow.
All right. Good talking to both of you. Have a
Thank
good night.
Take care, brother.
God bless.
Good night. Wow, that was an action-packed show.
Yes.
That, my friend, was star-studded.
And Scott Casey, just a wonderful, wonderful man. And an icon of the business.
Very humble.
Yes.
I am always in awe, Nikki, of his humility. That here's the guy, he and Eddie Mansfield, they're legit, sold out the Hemisphere Arena in Dallas, Texas, probably 18 times, sold it out to capacity at 14,000 people.
Right.
Where they had to turn people away every time. That's for real. That's a shoot.
The Hemisphere Arena would be like the Spectrum for the East Coast.
Yeah.
It was big, a huge venue.
Oh, it's absolutely a nice size. Believe me, probably 3 times the size of the Sportatorium in Dallas for sure.
Yes.
Which was a shithole, but it was a historic shithole. You know. Everybody, I am going to do a show, and you and I have to do this. We've got to do a show on great wrestling venues like the Sportatorium, like the Spectrum, like the Olympic Auditorium in L.A.
Just thinking L.A., yes, sir.
Philadelphia Arena.
Or Hamburg Fieldhouse.
Here's one for you.
Mosque.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm going down memory lane now, Nikki.
Every
what's
Friday
coming
night.
up for Nikita Brezhnikov? What you got going on, brother?
Nothing I can speak of, but hopefully something. So, hey, you know what? I never stop plugging and never stop swinging. I'm just trying to stay healthy. Keep happy. That's it. Stay happy, people. Don't worry about
Absolutely.
One day at a time.
Be happy. Like the song says, don't worry, be happy.
Amen.
For Nikita Brezhnikov, I'm Psychic Mean Angelo. Take care, everybody. Next time, wrestle with the future and have a good time.